Welcome back to another episode of Cricket Mehfil, and today's episode is action-packed because Pakistan has just pulled off the greatest of escapes in the second test match at National Stadium, Karachi versus Australia, and we're going to be reviewing that test and briefly previewing the third and final test match in Lahore. And with me today, I have a very, very special guest. He has covered cricket professionally on various platforms and is a very keen cricket observer, Mr. Kamran Muzaffer. Hello, Kamran bhai, and how do you feel in the direct aftermath of that grueling test match?
First of all, thank you, Baram, for having me on this platform. And it's always nice talking to you and the whole grassroots team, Hassan Bhai. I hope he's doing it good as well. About the test match, it's good that we are not doing it right away. So I had a bit of a time to have a breather, to eat something, to drink something, to get my heart rate back. A lot of people think that people like me, they stay very cool and they don't get excited. But that's the kind of a match that can get anyone excited, regardless of the result.
Absolutely, and thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be hosting you. So, Kamran bhai, Pakistan were bowled out for 148, a paltry 148 in the first innings, and then Australia put on 97 odd runs and gave Pakistan a gigantic task of chasing down 506 with 172 overs to go. Almost all of day 4 and day 5, Pakistan had to bat through, and just the enormity of this task and the fact that Pakistan has achieved this gargantuan feat. How would you describe that enormity? Because they've broken several records along the way, and then they've also batted the longest, second longest, I believe, in a test match, which has resulted in a draw. So what's your take on that in total?
I think from the perspective of records are meant to be broken. It's good. Babar Azam he has scored the highest number of runs by a captain in the fourth innings, 196. And it's a great result for Pakistan because sometimes what we do, we assess the results from the perspective of what is the score line, what is the net result. But at times in the crucial moments, it's the momentum that counts. And Pakistan literally got out of jail from where they were at the end of the third day. Coincidentally, right in the middle, if you talk about 5 days, 15 days of test cricket, right at the 8th day, Pakistan were down and out. Completely, they were down for the count. And I think in the hindsight, it was probably very generous of Australia to give them the chance. And they probably, I don't know, what would be the right expression if it was they underestimated Pakistan or overestimated themselves. Because I think in the context of the momentum of the whole series, if they would have made Pakistan follow on, that would have dented them more. It might have ended in a draw even then, but there was a possibility of pinning Pakistan down and taking that momentum into the next match as well. But now, the real change, what has happened now, is that Pakistan will go more confident and more momentum on their side rather than Australia. Although Australia have played exceptionally good cricket in this test, but they might go in Lahore test a bit dejected, feeling that they missed something, and Pakistan with the feeling that they achieved something. So that would be the difference going into the Lahore test, I think.
100% it was a comeback for the ages by Pakistan, and anyone who watched that game, Kamran bhai, will know that this pitch was pulling some tricks. I mean, it wasn't that easy to bat on. In fact, Babar, Abdullah and Rizwan, who were the mainstays of Pakistan's second innings, they made it look easy on that surface. And just to give our viewers a bit of context, 907 deliveries were played by Babar, Abdullah and Rizwan, which is over 151 overs. So that's just how much they contributed towards this draw. And we'll go one by one talking about each of these. First of all, Babar Azam, a true captain's knock, no better way to describe it. And he had a lot riding on his shoulders before this knock, Kamran bhai, because there was a trend of Babar Azam not being able to add on to his overnight scores in Test cricket. His highest score was 143. He'd never gotten a real daddy 100. So he got both of those things. He added 94 to his overnight score, fell agonizingly short of his first double 100 in Test cricket, and broke so many records along the way. A marathon innings of 425 balls faced, fourth longest innings in terms of ball faced in Test match history in the fourth innings. He also became the highest scorer for Pakistan in a fourth innings individual scores, and also batted the longest for a Pakistani in history. What would you say about Babar's knock, and do you think now he has truly arrived in the Test arena?
Babar has been there. It was never about his arrival. The potential, the elegance that he has everything. I think it was just a matter of time when he gets his this knock, or he converts his billing, his potential, and all the talk about him into something memorable. And I think this was the kind of innings. I don't know for how long he is going to play a cricket or Test cricket, and how long a career he might end up with. But I'm sure about one thing. This is the kind of innings that will stay with him forever, for his life. Even if he plays 100 tests, 200 tests, doesn't matter. It's just like we associate some of the innings with Sunil Gavaskar or Sachin Tendulkar. He played 200 tests. So there are some signature innings that defines the character of a player. And this is one of those kind of innings. And the good part is, under so much hammer, so much pressure, not only as a batsman, but as a captain, and whatever happened before the test, during the test, on the third day, that collapse, where he did not collapse, but his team collapsed, and just going there, and as if he took out his USB memory out of all that, and just went there and played his game. And what a feast of an innings was. And the good part was, it was a brave innings. He took his chances. So it was not just that he played a chanceless innings. Yes, he took on chances. He got lucky. But I think it was a testament or embodiment of luck favors the brave. So he was brave enough, and luck favored him.
No doubt about it that this was, in fact, Babar Azam's most important knock in his Test career thus far. And he did also break another record. Now he has the most runs in the fourth innings for a captain in Test history, which is quite commendable. And Babar can only get better from here. He hadn't gotten a Test 100 in over 2 years. So now he has that monkey off his back, and you'd expect him to score another one in Lahore?
Definitely, because people expect him to score a double ton every time he walks out to bat. And he's the kind of player, even in bad form, he does not look like to be struggling. It's very rare you see, and I think it was one of the Australians who said it on air during the Ashes, that he never makes ugly runs, and that's what the special thing about him. So I'm sure it's the first of many to come, and we are going to see a lot of such innings from him very soon.
Yeah, here's to hoping. And the hallmark of his knock was that it was under so much pressure, given that he came out to bat at 20 odd for 2 down. His partner at the time, and he also made a record partnership with him, youngster Abdullah Shafiq, only in his fourth Test. He's had a prodigious start to his career. He scored a ton on first class debut, then scored a ton on T20 debut, scored twin 50s in his debut Test versus Bangladesh, then got his maiden 100 in the previous Test at Rawalpindi, and then in this game, he showed us a side which we hadn't seen before. It was an absolute blockathon, 305 deliveries faced for 96 runs. Very unlucky to miss out on his 100, but he showed us how versatile he can be, and that he can play according to the situation, and if need be, he can really grind it out, which is great to see from a youngster, isn't it?
Without a doubt, and Behram, another good thing about that innings was that we talk about so much about age, experience, and playing at the first class level or the domestic circuit. But this is a guy, Abdullah Shafiq, who has been picked on potential. He had played just one first class game and 7 grade 2 games when he was picked. And since then, he has been mostly traveling with Pakistan team. So he has been sharing the dressing room with the likes of Babar Azam, and being that part of the family, and learning their trade from on the go, on the job training with the best in the business, and spending 1 year observing all these guys, how they prepare for an encounter, how they behave when they come out, what they talk about in between. So that was exactly what we saw. So it didn't look like he was playing his first game, or he's so young in his career. It was just a seventh innings. So yeah, I think from that perspective, and what a class player he is, Abdullah. I am sure that the kind of that partnership that we saw 228 in the times to come, for many years to come, we are going to see many of those Babar and Abdullah partnerships in years to come.
Yeah, we sure hope so. And not only was his knock gritty, but he's just such an elegant and aesthetically pleasing player to watch. And he really soaked up the pressure. And even though he had a life early on in his innings, Steve Smith shelled a fairly straightforward catch in slips, but he did cash in and make the most of it and made Australia pay as well. And another person who has made soaking up pressure his hobby, you could say, is Mohammad Rizwan. He's turning out to be an all-format superstar for Pakistan. Great 100 by him, his second in Test cricket, a very fluid 100, and he was that main player towards the end who saw Pakistan home and made sure that there isn't any last-minute collapse. Kamran bhai, if I look at Rizwan's rise in international cricket, the only other player that I can compare it to is Steve Smith. How important has Rizwan become to Pakistan's cause in such a short amount of time?
It's not a short amount of time, really. The only thing is, I think he was a bit unlucky that his rise or his time was overlapped with the rise of Sarfraz Ahmed around that 2015, because not a lot of people would remember that Mohammad Rizwan made his Test debut not as a wicketkeeper but as a specialist batsman back in 2016 in New Zealand. So the thing is, he is good enough, but finally he got his chance, and he has just made it look like that he belonged there for decades. And the good part is that this guy has such a high self belief and very simple philosophy, and he doesn't complicate things. Even when the whole Pakistan team and the whole of Pakistan was praying and trying for a draw, and this guy was going for his century. He was playing his shots, hitting sixes and boundaries. So that shows his character, that it's not that he saved the match, it's the manner in which he saved that match. On a fifth day, last session pitch, where the opponent are right on top of you, there's so much pressure of losing the game. And this guy is so confident about his own ability that he just kept on playing his natural shots and kept delivering. So Mohammad Rizwan, he has been phenomenal, and he is that kind of a, you can say, tonic and you can say antidepressant probably for the Pakistan team, that doesn't let a Pakistan team slip into any despondency or depression from any point. So he has been phenomenal, and I wish him all the best, because he is not just an asset for Pakistan cricket. I believe he's an asset for global cricket at the moment.
Absolutely. And he really is the epitome of hard work, courage, and undying spirit. And he lifts up the spirit of the entire team as well. Mohammad Rizwan, I feel, is priceless to Pakistan cricket right now, and arguably the best all-format wicketkeeper in contemporary cricket. Anyway, moving on, Kamran bhai, I'd like to talk about the pitch, because it was such a big topic of discussion and people were criticizing the pitch left, right, and center. But ultimately, you got one hell of a test match in Karachi. And what's your take? Do you think the criticism has been fair? How would you rate the Karachi pitch?
Baram, I think those who have been in touch with me or have been interacting with on public forums, they know it very well. I was never too much interested in this debate, because I believe these pitch and toss, they are definitely factors, even umpiring to an extent, but they're convenient excuses to cover up your weaknesses. The champion teams never hide behind those excuses, because at the end of the day, toss you cannot control, umpiring you cannot control, and the pitch, the both teams played on play on the same surface, and there is no a kind of a template or no standard of what is a good pitch and what a bad pitch. Yes, Pindi pitch got one demerit point because it did not deteriorate as much as ICC wanted, which is a bit surprising. Mm-hmm. But on the Karachi pitch, I think it played true. And a lot of people were saying before on the first day that it will crack up. But I'm from Karachi. I've seen these surfaces, and I got a chance of bowling on some of such pitches. So my expectation from the word go was that it will go low and slow, but it will not break up, because it was too much water was there and it was heavily rolled. And if I bring one incident as evidence to that is that hammer by the Australian bowlers when they were trying to scruff up the landing area. If it's a bad pitch, you never have to do that. In fact, the bowlers try to stay away from that area to make their footing safe. But that amount of hammering that showed how firm and how true that pitch was. And again, Australians played on the same surface. Pakistanis played on the same surface. It was more of a test of ability rather than the pitch. So, as I think I said it somewhere as well, that all it takes to produce compelling Test cricket is gutsy cricketers, not the crafty groundsmen. So I think we have to move on from this all this pitch debate and focus on the craft and the guts of these players.
I concur with you, Kamran Bhai, and really I think that rather than talking about the pitch, we should be applauding the endurance showed by Pakistan to play out 172 overs on day 4 and 5, which really I have never experienced in my life. I've heard about that Michael Atherton knock versus South Africa, but I wasn't old enough to appreciate that back in the day. Anyway, moving on, Kamran Bhai, I want to shift our focus towards Australia. Of course, they did grass a lot of catches. I don't think I've ever seen them drop these many catches in a test match, because they dropped Abdullah, then the silly point fielders, they dropped a few catches, then Usman Khwaja dropped that crucial catch of Mohammad Rizwan right towards the end. You could argue that Australia were a bit unlucky as well, with a few LBW calls not going their way. Had those been given out, the decision would have stayed. And then ultimately, I want to talk to you about their strategy. You touched upon this before as well, that they lost 22 and a half overs by coming out to bat again. So would it have been useful had they enforced a follow-on and had longer to bowl at Pakistan? Because it does seem like Pat Cummins missed a trick over there. So which factor do you think contributed to Australia's inability to win this test match the most?
Yeah, I think in the hindsight, because obviously in the hindsight, you always have that advantage because you don't have to do anything. You just have to speculate and that cannot be proven right or wrong anyways. So I think on third day, yes, their bowlers had bowled a longer spell, but what they missed out a couple of things. One thing, I was just trying to remember that how many overs they had batted at the end of day 3, because I know I think they played 8 overs on the 4th morning. So they only had to bowl 10 to 12 overs, or at the max, let's put it that way, it was definitely not more than 22 overs. Okay. And their strategy was, like in the second innings, their pacers bowled 4 overs and they brought in their spinners. And then they brought back their pacers after 20th over mark, because the strategy was, and the focus was, they wanted to use Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc when the ball is 20 overs old enough to be reversing, but it's still hard enough to be lethal or have an impact. Because after the 40 overs, because Australian players had faced the reversing from Pakistani bowlers, but it was not incisive. It was not that, you can say, threatening. So if they had considered that point, that their bowlers, they had to bowl just a couple of overs, not more than that. The other thing is how Pakistan collapsed in the first innings. It was, yes, Australians bowled at the end good, they bowled in the right areas. But if you look at the top 5 or the specialist, the dismissal of Pakistan specialist batsmen, Abdullah Shafiq, he got run out. Imamul Haq, he got out playing a shot. Azhar Ali, he chased the ball unnecessarily. Fawad Alam, he got a good one, just a single delivery. And Babar Azam, at the end, he got basically, he got holed out. But Rizwan and the later order, they were basically, their wickets were taken by Australia. The others were thrown. So at that time, Pakistan was in a very despondent situation. They were on the mat from the Spits perspective. And if you, I attended the post-play press conference at the end of the third day, and it was a one deflated voice coming from Pakistan camp. They could have dented them, and if they had taken 1 or 2 wickets again before the end of play, Pakistan might have bundled out at maybe lunch or tea on day 4. I think that's where they missed the trick. Apart from that, I think, yes, luck didn't go their way. Like I mentioned, the first innings, all those dismissals, which they, in a way, they got lucky. But it was all that luck got evened out in the second innings.
Hmm.
Eventually, on the score sheet, they took 7 wickets, but I believe they claimed at least 17 or 18 wickets. It just wasn't their day. Babar got saved through umpire's call. Rizwan got saved. Abdullah Shafiq, he was dropped, run out missed, and all those things. So hats off to Australian team, Australian bowlers on this surface in this heat. They gave their best, and it's just that luck was not on their side. Otherwise, they would have finished this game, I think, by lunch on the fifth day.
I think you made some very valid points over there, especially when you dissected the first innings of Pakistan, such that a lot of those dismissals were rather careless, like the 2 runouts. Then Babar got out trying to hit Mitchell Swepson over his head, and I think Imam was also coming down the track. And then a bunch of players, they played away from their body. But then again, you have to credit Australia's bowlers because they did bowl with a lot of heart. They were relentless throughout this test. And even though this will feel like a loss to Australia, they do have a lot of positives to take out of this game, Kamran Bhai, because you look at Usman Khwaja, he's been in prolific form. He's been absolutely resolute on the crease. 160 in this game, 100 in his country of birth, 97 in the last game, then also 44 in the second innings. He is the leading run scorer in this series. You've got Steve Smith, who's got 2 scores of 70. You've got Mitchell Starc, who was extracting a lot of reverse swing. He was getting the ball to tail back into the batsman at blistering pace, and he must be really happy going to Lahore. And then also Pat Cummins, I thought he was really relentless. And that double wicket blow on day 5 when he removed Abdullah Shafiq and Fawad Alam, all of a sudden you felt like Australia might have had a sniff. Nathan Lyon also got 4 wickets, and then Alex Carey almost scored his maiden ton. So there are a lot of positives for Australia to take forward to Lahore.
Definitely, I think if the Australians are going to go back to the drawing board, and if they are going to do a bit of a soul searching, I don't think they would find many points where they would have done differently if they've given a chance. Because on the first day, the way they batted out that reverse swing spell when they were 150 in just 39 overs, they were going at a good rate, and then they played next 10 overs for just 9 runs. They gave respect to a good spell from Shaheen, Fahim, and Hassan. And Khwaja played 4 consecutive maidens from Shaheen. And then all that spell of it, the negative in the pads, in the rough kind of a stuff from Pakistani spinners on day 1, and they didn't throw it away. They didn't throw it away. So I think that shows a lot of character. It was they applied themselves, and again, Cummins, Swepson, Starc, Green, Lyon till the end on 5th day, the way they were putting in their effort, it was visible to everyone. One thing they must be looking at to improve, as an area of improvement, is catching. Usman Khwaja and Steve Smith. Something is not going their way. And Labuschagne, as much as he is that jack in the box and the chirpy kind of stuff, for some reason, the ball kept evading him at the short leg or silly point. So probably I think that's where they are going to look for improvements. Other than that, I would not want them to tinker anything as much. If it's going to be a greenish pitch, bring back Hazelwood. Australia should keep their heads high. They have put in a very good effort, and eventually it was a draw. It was not a loss.
Absolutely. And of course, Australia will be the first to admit that they did let a lot of chances slip by, and that did hurt them ultimately. Now, Kamran Bhai, I want to shift the focus a bit to Lahore. Let's just preview the third and final test, the series decider. And for starters, I want to ask you, how do you expect the Gaddafi Stadium Lahore wicket to behave? Is it going to be similar to Karachi? And what can we expect?
Expect the same pitch as Karachi.
Okay.
So that you don't feel any disappointment.
Absolutely. And I love it when test matches go all the way down to the wire on the 5th day, just like we witnessed today. So in terms of potential changes for both squads, would you change anything in the Pakistan squad? Maybe bring in a leg spinner in Zahid Mahmood?
But I'm not really a fan of speculating on the team changes without seeing the surface, because I believe that your playing 11 should be based on the conditions that you're playing in. So unless and until I see the surface of the first hand access of that, whatever I'm going to say it is going to be just a speculation out of thin air. So if he plays Zahid or not, look, there comes a time when out of the 11 out there, every 12th person looks like a Don Bradman or a Shane Warne or Abdul Qadir or Imran Khan. Okay, but the thing is, these are the guys who have played 10 days of very, very intense cricket, and there's not a lot that any of these guys have done wrong. You talk about batsmen other than Fawad Alam, who got the chance just in this test. All of your other batsmen had some innings of substance. Azhar, Imam, Abdullah, Babar, even Rizwan, they are amongst the runs. The bowlers, they bowled pretty well. So I don't see many changes unless and until, which is highly unexpected, that we are going to see a green top for a couple of reasons. One, Pakistan, I don't think would go with a green top strategy. Second, I have some insights from some people that that's not the strategy. And the third, this is not the weather in which you can expect a lively green top in Lahore. We are just coming out of a winter. So I don't think it is going to be a green top over there.
Interesting. And similar views, I guess, on Australia as well. You mentioned that they might play Josh Hazelwood, but given that you think it won't be a green top, you'd expect Australia to go unchanged because they've been playing well.
They might swap Hazelwood with the Stark, because I think in Pindi, Hazelwood was the best Australian pacer on the show. But hats off to Australian think tank. They realized that they would need Stark for the reverse swing. And probably, if you talk about the fundamentals or the basics, because seeing at that square, okay, we can understand very barren or brownish kind of outfield. But the outfield was lush green. But all the practice pitches, all the reserve pitches, they were brown. So why they were left brown? Because the home team wanted the reverse swing to come into play. And Australia's best exponent of a reverse swing is Mitchell Starc. But I think in Lahore and the surface, I believe, I have a strong feeling that it will be Hazelwood in place of Starc, unless they decide to rest Swepson.
Very interesting take there. And Kamran bhai, given that you feel like it won't be a green top in Lahore, do you feel like the toss will be an important one to win? Do you think the side batting first will be at an advantage at Gaddafi Stadium?
Again, it depends on the surface. If there is any life on the pitch, the Gaddafi Stadium pitch, it does for a half an hour or so, about an hour early, the first hour or 30 minutes or 60 minutes, it does help the swing bowling, the seam bowling, and Australians are especially very, very capable of that. Then Pakistan have Shaheen Afridi, who has shown those skills even with the white ball. So if there is some life on the pitch, that won't remain for the 5 days. That will be there just for the first day. Otherwise, if it's a shaven, brownish kind of a surface, then I think batting first would be the better choice. And about the result, I don't think toss is going to make that much of a difference in the kind of a surface that the two teams are going to get for batting or bowling, but it would be more to do with the pressure handling. Because again, who is going to face the fourth innings pressure? That will be decided by the toss and the option to choose to bat or bowl. Other than that, I think there will be not a lot of difference in batting or bowling conditions throughout the 5 days.
Thanks for that wonderful insight. And yes, ultimately, it is a game of fine margins and nerves do come into play. We saw how Australia couldn't capitalize on their nerves on day 5 in Karachi, and that ultimately cost them. So taking the World Test Championship context into play now, Kamran bhai, Australia and Pakistan, they both find themselves at the top of the table. So there's a lot riding on this final game, isn't it? Whoever wins this has a very realistic chance of making the World Test Championship final.
I'm glad you touched upon this topic, because not a lot of people are seeing in that context, and it's pretty understandable as well, because this World Test Championship is a rather very modern concept. It's just a second cycle, and not everyone understands the points table. And then hats off to ICC as well to making it complicated for people to understand. If I put it that way, this whole table that is being circulated by ICC and you find it quick info, it is a bit misleading, because the thing is, the way it reflects your points is what percentage of points you have achieved from the points that were available for those matches that you have played. So if I put it that way, that like in PSL, if you were supposed to play 10 matches, when you see at the points table, you see two things. You see, okay, how many played, how much points have been taken, and how many matches are left, because the remaining matches counts a lot. But in this context, what they are doing, so basically what they are doing, they are, if in the PSL context, if I go with that analogy, if a team has played 3 matches and they have won 2 out of 3 games, they are giving them the 66%. But they have only played 3 out of 10 games. They are yet to play the better chunk of their allotted points or allotted quota of matches. So how can you give them 66%? That's a bit misleading. And on that basis, a lot of people are thinking that Australia and Pakistan are on top, which is in essence is not the case, because Australia has just played till now only 34% of their allotted tests. They are going to play 19 tests. Okay, so they have played 5 tests against England and 2 against Pakistan. So they are around 35% mark. Pakistan, this was their 6th test out of 14 they are supposed to play. So in that context, those totals can never be 66 or 60 because they have not even played 60% of matches. Anyways, so I did a bit of a calculation on that. I wrote an article on that and I published that as well. If I get a chance today or tonight, I'll put up on my blog as well a bit on this thing, how things work, so for the understanding of people. So I'm just referring to that all what I'm saying, if any one of the listeners they want to understand a bit more about it, it will be there. You can find the details there. But if I summarize the kind of calculations or predictive calculations I did, as many matches Pakistan and Australia have drawn, it has benefited anyone but Australia and Pakistan. So those points have been fizzled out, and it's been shared between 2 teams. So if I put it that way, points have been dissolved. 4 points were out of the total 12 points, they were on offer for a win. Okay, that has benefited India. A lot of people thinking that India are behind in the race. They are not. They have a series against Bangladesh in Bangladesh, and then they are supposed to host Australia for 4 tests at home, and they have to play 1 away test, 1 pending test. So they are very much in a very strong position, and with these 2 drawn tests, I think India have become the favorites to qualify for the World Test Championship final. Okay, who would be their opponent? Before the start of this series, Pakistan and Australia both were favorites, and India were the rank outsiders. They were in the challenger position. But because of these drawn tests, now this series, Pakistan-Australia series, might eventually turn out to be the virtual semi-final. And one of these teams would qualify for the final on the basis of the performance in this series. The way this World Test Championship points work, although the 2 teams have played draw, but Pakistan has earned more points for playing these draws. So Pakistan have earned 2.38 points for every draw, and Australia have earned 1.75. You won't see in the current points table at the moment that way. So eventually, if it comes down to that point, Pakistan will benefit from playing these 2 tests as draw rather than losing them. But let's see. It would all depend on the last test. Whichever team wins the final test will be favorites to make it to the World Test Championship final. So there's all to play for.
Well, there, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Kamran Muzaffer himself. You can go check out his blog once he publishes it. And I feel like it might be very insightful because he has done quite a lot of math over here, as you can see. But the bottom line is that there is a lot riding on this test match. And whoever wins it between Pakistan and Australia, they will have an advantage going into that World Test Championship final race. And then Pakistan, of course, has a series away coming up against Sri Lanka, then have England and New Zealand at home. So if they win this, things might start to look on the up for them. Kamran bhai, just before I let you go, just for fun, a quick prediction. What's going to be the result of the Lahore test?
It's very difficult now. It is very difficult now. I took the unpopular opinion before the start of the test match when I said 1-0 Australia or 1-1 even to both the teams. But a lot of people didn't like it. I would give 50-50 to both teams.
Interesting. Yeah, my pre-series prediction was 1-1 as well. But now, given that Pakistan have the momentum and their spirits and morale will be uplifted, I'm going to go with Pakistan 1-0 just to make things interesting. But thank you so much for taking out the time, Kamran bhai. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, do like our content, share it and subscribe. We at Grassroots Cricket, we're trying to change the landscape of Pakistan cricket journalism. So support us and we'll keep delivering quality content to you. That's all for now. Bye-bye.